Well, the UK finally grew some balls. We finally got some bollocks around here. But guess what? It's too freaking late. Listen, you guys, it's so funny how there's all of this happening. There's all these people going against two-tier Keir. Also, can I just say on another episode of I Told You So, who remembers about 1 or 2, 3 years ago when I was talking about how Keir Starmer is going to be problematic in power? I told you so. I am getting sick of being right about stuff that people made me seem crazy for. Well, now everybody's marching and what's the word for that? Going around with their signs and what's the word for the freaking, why do I always forget what it's called? Protesting, right? About, taking our country back and all this stuff over here. Oh my freaking days. We finally grew a backbone, and it's too freaking late. And all of this are the hallmarks of the DNA of the British people, right? And I never really realized it for a long time until into my adult years that this is what always happens, right? This is what happens when you choose to be passive aggressive as opposed to being confrontational when necessary. This is what happens when you try to be politically correct and not talk about religion and politics, as opposed to standing on business about your morals and your values and your religion and your politics. This is what happens when you don't want to rock the boat. The boat gonna be rocked and you gonna sink because you weren't even ready to swim, because you didn't even know how to swim, because you ain't even talking about swimming, because that would rock the boat. And here we are. So now the funny thing is that all of the conversations at the moment are about immigration. Now I have two things to say about this, right? I've got two layers. And I'm going to tell you what the first layer is going to be about the fact that I do agree immigration is a huge issue, right? It's been long a huge issue in this country. I can tell you as an immigrant, and I'll give my opinion about that in just a minute. On another side, right? And bearing in mind, I just want to say that I never asked to be anywhere, okay? So I'm only now coming to the stage of my life where I get to choose where to live, and hence why I don't know where the hell I should live in the world, because my goodness. Then the second part of it is how this whole fact of them allowing immigration to be at the forefront is just another way for the government to distract you from the fact that you are just as much of a pawn in their game as the immigrants that you're championing about, and they're loving that you're once again, it's like the snake in the garden all over again. You go and be upset over there because it means you're not looking at me, the person who's actually playing all the strings here. So let's just go and let's start there, then come back to the immigration, right? I want to make it clear here, right, that one thing I've learned as living in this country, right, for what's going to be, I moved here for the first time 20 years as of this year, 20 years ago as of this year, as a kid, obviously. And the circumstances in which I came, let's all be very transparent, right? Because we all do transparency over here. I think, honestly, this is the most transparent on this channel. I'm surprised I'm not see-through at this point, right? So here's how I came to this country, right? Long and short of it is, my mother studied and she qualified in a healthcare profession in Zimbabwe, right? That led for her to land an actual job with a visa in the United States, where she worked in healthcare the entirety of the time that she was there. I was then born. Obviously, America, very different to the UK. I'm not going to get into that, actually. That's not for this video. Then that same qualification that she got in Africa got her a job here, and she followed all the rules. She ticked all the boxes, whatever. She has worked in healthcare as long as we've lived here. She's been in healthcare more than 20 years. She's worked in this exact same job in the NHS since we came, hence how we all came legally and all have the legal rights and residency, etc., whatever. You got it, right? So that's how that happened. I have to preface with that because I feel like I should say, because I'm clearly not white British, right? Also, it's very confusing. Can I just say, I would recommend to parents out there, don't be taking your kids around to be born in other places, because then they'll grow up and they'll have no sense of identity like me in any nation. So where was I going with this? So I've observed, from my position of pretty much living like a UK citizen my whole entire life is in the UK, as in like, I never was doing anything under the table behind the scenes. We were never worried about is the immigration knocking up, because there's stories of stuff like that, right, that happen across the board of different people. So I eventually realized that as somebody who has the same rights as a United Kingdom's, as an original UK citizen, right? The government treats everybody the same. That's the long and short of it. The government treats everybody the same. Like as bad as I understand all the rules and regulations as far as people immigrating legally. Like, of course, it costs a lot of, I'll say these things, it costs a lot of money, as it should, because you want to add money into your economy in your country. So people are going to come, they either be bringing money or bringing something to build up the economy or something, you know what I mean? So the fact that it costs a lot to do a lot of these things, like do all the immigration, do all the different stages of all the different paperworks and such and so forth, I think that's a good thing, because you should, as a country, be doing stuff like that. I'm very much in favor of that. You should be vetting the types of people that come into your country. You know what I'm saying? So for me, all of that's completely reasonable, right? And that's what should be done. Hence why I'm also in favor of the issue with a lot of the illegal immigration that takes place, because all of those other layers of other things that other people had to do isn't there. Right. But then I can tell you as an immigrant, as a legal immigrant, that those people have way more rights than I do as a way more support, way more things that they get. Not to say that I want them, because I'm not somebody who likes to hand out. You guys know I'm a winner in life. I like to work for the things that I earn. I like to earn things. I don't like to just be given things just for the sake of it. And I especially hate people feeling sorry for me. So, things were done the proper way. People worked hard. My grandma worked her butt off to pay for my mum's education in Zimbabwe. She worked her butt off to pay for that degree. She worked her butt off. She's the one who found these opportunities for her children in various things. So, you know what I'm saying? People worked hard to get there. They didn't just, cut corners and whatever. So I see, and I've seen it since I've been living in London and since all these things, right, that I know that the government treats their own people, the white original British who could go back 100 years and have lineage in this country, they treat them just as trash as they treat everybody else. And that's why I feel like this immigration thing is just a tool for them to, yes, it is an issue that needs to be addressed, which we'll come to in a minute. But also, it's just another opportunity for the government to take the people that don't realize how much they're being oppressed. Because one thing I've been really thinking about quite a lot for a lot of various reasons is how if you've only lived in one place, in one country for the predominance of your life, if you've never physically lived somewhere for say 5-10 years, right? You really don't recognize how different your accepted quality of life is versus somewhere else. So to me, of all the places I've ever lived, even though you might argue that somewhere like Zimbabwe has a lower, less economically developed, as a lot of people say, or is a poorer country in a lot of senses, right, that people would say, I would say of the 3 countries I've lived in, that the United Kingdom has the lowest accepted quality of life. As in, at least in places like Zimbabwe and places like that, first of all, people make a lot more out of a lot less. Second of all, they're aware that what they have is not close to what they actually they deserve. Whereas in this country, there's almost this idea that both is existing within the country itself, because people here have a sense of pride, like, oh, we're better than everywhere else, like King Charles, he's king of 1.7 billion of the world. Yeah, we're the you know what I mean? We're the winners of history and all these things, yeah? Cool. But I think the quality of life is the lowest of the 3 countries I've ever lived in. The accepted quality of life is the lowest in this country. And the government's made it that way, right? In that way. And that's why when the problem becomes the immigrants, it's such an easy way for the government to be like, oh no. And that's one thing that the government does well. It's something that cowardly people do. Instead of, a lot of times when you have leadership, right, you have different kinds of leaders, right? So there's some leaders who go forth and they say things that they are forward, they put their face forward with what they believe, who they are, what they are trying to achieve, and what they think needs to be done. Like what I'm doing on my channel, like what you see from a lot of the big leaders in the world and other countries, right? Other leaders will come forward and they'll say, this is what I believe. Their face will be attached to their message. One thing that the British government is great at doing, they did it through Brexit and they're doing it again, is there's something that, yes, they want to do and they want to address, but instead of addressing it directly hands-on, what they do is they let the people get riled up. They let the people go forward, so then they can just go, oh, I guess that everyone's so upset. We're gonna have to do something about the thing that we already marinated you to get upset about, but we're gonna make it seem, because again, the power's with the people. How many times I need to say this? The power's with the people. So they're gonna fall back, right, while all this is happening, and let everybody be like up in an uproar. Oh my gosh, look at what's happening with this. Look at what the immigration over there and this, right? So that when you've upset now, you've now given them a reason to now intervene, and that's how they do it. That's how the cowardice works in this country. So they don't step forward. They don't have these big whatevers. They just fall back. They let the people get upset. They let the heat rise amongst the people, and it's genius. It's exactly what like manipulative type of people do, because then whatever happens forward from there, they can throw the blame back onto you and say, well, you guys are the ones who wanted this. You guys are the ones who are upset. We just did what you wanted, right? So then they are always absolved of any responsibility, any accountability, even though that was their strategy from the beginning. So that's why I think this whole concept of the immigration thing and whatever, albeit I agree with that, which we're about to move into in just a second. I agree that there's issues there, but it is also just another tool. Because even if, let's say you guys get rid of everyone, that's all illegal immigrants or any type of whatever version of immigration you want in this country, right? It's not going to change the fact you're still going to be pawns to the same government, and they're just going to find something else that they're just going to find something else to hide the fact that you're actually living a significantly lower accepted quality of life, right? And consistently just being used as pawns literally in their machine whilst they do whatever their dealings are with the rest of the world. So interesting how Americanized everything's becoming. Like I said, I've been really observing a lot of things in this country, right? I've been observing quite a lot, and it's interesting how, again, right now in this here town, I saw this happen when I was living in London, and I'm seeing it now, right? And this is going to tie in with the immigration thing, ironically. I'm looking around. I've been complaining video after video. You guys see me talking about them cutting down trees in this town. I spent, I don't know how many years, equivalent of how many years living in this town. I guess, let's count. Maybe about 15 of the total years I've lived in this country, maybe 14. And I know this town like the back of my hand. In the last couple of weeks, for various reasons, I've been walking all over. I've probably covered at least a third, if not more, of the entirety of this town walking. And I remember what it was like when I was growing up. They're cutting down all the trees. They're cutting down and they're building all of these huge like buildings that are going to become housing. They did the same thing when I was in London, right? And let me tell you something. And they're doing it more and more in London, because this is a small, very small place. So we can't build outwards, so we can only build upwards, right? So here's the thing. These places are not places that can be afforded by, and this is where we go to the immigration thing and how this is a dingle-dangle little thing that doesn't really make sense. Because on the one hand, we're saying there's issues with immigration, of which there is. I can tell you for free, there are a lot of places in the UK where there are literal whole areas where I, even as a Black woman who's an immigrant, right, feel uncomfortable to go in because a whole culture has taken over that area, particularly the Abrahamic religions, okay, which is the other thing. This is where the UK is paying. Let's do that as a separate. You know what? Let's do that as a separate. Let's do these all separately. You know what? We're going to go to the immigration thing. Actually, yeah, we'll do these separately. I feel it's best to do these separately. We'll do immigration, then we'll come to the religion thing, because they're both big levels and I don't want to make this one big, long video. But let's just start with this, right? Let's just start with the fact that they are dingle-dangling. They are playing you against yourself, right? They're playing you against yourself, and they're just going to always find a way to have something else to blame whilst also being hypocrites. So we'll come to the immigration thing, because there's two sides. There's them clearly doing things that only suits them, that only shows they're clearly trying to get people more to move here. But then there's other things about how we as people in this country have consistently sat on their little butts with no absolute bollocks to their name, allowing things to happen like little cowards afraid of confrontation. And that is why so many things have changed, which I literally saw happening as I've been living in this country. So we're going to come to those in two separate bits, because I want to just address each topic separately. But yeah, so that's why I don't even want to discuss. This is why I don't even care, honestly, when people try to say like people are speaking up now, because I'm like, you guys should have spoken up before 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you guys should have been speaking, right? But we're going to come to that in the next video. So come to the next part where we're going to specifically talk about the immigration situation in the United Kingdom. On that note, if life's a game is played to win, God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one.